Hello, welcome to sessions on jurisprudence by Nyaya Prasadam. I am Shyam Manthana. This session is about the term equity in jurisprudence. Let's understand what equity is. Well, so in the event if there are situations where things are enforceable by natural justice, but they were not enforced in real or they are not materialized, then such things are called as the equity under the jurisprudence or equity of law. It's also called as the equitable law. Now, let's see how do we address such situations. The situations are handled with two things. One is the equity remedies. The second is general principles. Now, let's see what is the equity remedies. When there are situations which requires the equitable law to come into the picture, then such things can be addressed by the given remedies. The remedies are primarily of two types. One is injunctions, and the second is specific performance. So let's see what is there in these two parts. Injunction is basically getting a direction from the court of law either to do something or to refrain from doing something. That's called an injunction basically. And under specific performance, there are multiple things. There are a few other remedies which we talk about now, such as the subrogation, which primarily talks about authorizing a third party to enforce the required justice to be made with respect to the insurance related disputes. Now, as well, there is other remedies, account of profits and rescission, which is also called as reversing of the contracts legally, and declaratory relief. Declaratory relief is a kind of declaration by the court with reference to an agreement or a contract between the parties on interpreting the exact meaning of the contract between the parties. The other one is Estoppels, and next is rectification. Estoppel is basically a doctrine in the contract law which generally enforces a promise irrespective of the execution of the contract. It's also called as promissory estoppel. So that's on the estoppel, and he also spoke about the rectification. So rectification is basically a rectification of instruments. Instrument is basically again a contract or a kind of thing on which anything can be performed, such as a check is a financial instrument. So rectification is concerned with contracts and documents, but not with the intentions. So that's how it works. So in order to ask for a rectification, it is very important to show that the parties were actually completely in agreement with the contents of the contract. But the only thing is they raise an error, probably it's out of drafting an erroneous entry. In this regard, they need to correct it or rectify it. That's called as the rectification. Now, in the event if you are worried about how to remember all these things, so there is a real simple mnemonic or cheat code by which you can remember this entire sequence of all the remedies available. So the simple mnemonic is equity remedy is Sardar. Now I repeat the spelling. So equity remedy is Sardar, I-S, and Sardar, S-A-R-D-E-R. Remember, it's not A-R, it's E-R. Is Sardar. So in this, the I-S, I stands for injunctions, S stands for specific performance, and S for subrogation, and next is A for accounts of profits, and next is R for rescission or reversing, and then next D for Declaratory Relief, and next is E for Estoppel, and next is Rectification. Rectification is the final one that stands for R. So E is Sardar. We'll talk about the next is the general principles connected with the equity. The general principles, there are around 10 different general principles. So let's see each of them what that about 10 different general principles connected with the equity. So to connect each of these general principles under the section of equity, we also have got other mnemonic. So the general principles are pretty simple. It says that it's more like an absolute general principle that we can adopt into our regular day-to-day life. So you look at the principles. The first principle says equity is a correction of the general law in the part where it is defective. So in the event if there is something wrong or something defective, then correcting that will happen with this equity. Similarly, the one who seeks equity must do equity. So the person who seeks equity cannot be wrong. He must be correct, and only then he is allowed to seek the equity. The one who comes with a equity must come with clean hands. You should not have any other malicious intentions in seeking the equity. He must have the absolute proper mindset with clean hands, which is often referred as clean hands. And of course, equity follows law. Nothing can be done over and above the law. Equality is also equity. So equality is not an indifferent thing. In the event where there is equal equity exists for whatsoever the reasons, then the law prevails. Whatever the law says, that comes up and that takes care of everything. Where the equities are absolutely equal and law has got no say in it, then whoever has come first, for them it prevails. The next is equity aids the vigilant and not the indolent, which means if you do not ask for, the law can't do anything. So you must learn to ask. You need to be vigilant. You need to be very proactive in seeking it. Equity looks at the intent rather than the form it is in. So the intentions are quite important, very important in this aspect. Equity imputes an intention to fulfill an obligation. So it imputes an intention into the whole thing to fulfill an obligation. So that's basically getting the equity part of law, getting its objective. So all these general principles can be addressed with one single statement. That single statement is correct the defective, must do equity with clean hands, lawfully, equally, law prevails, first time vigilant intent fulfills obligation. This must very much sounds like probably a filmy dialogue, confusing filmy dialogue, but remembering this one thing will help you to write down all the general principles. Let me repeat what it is. Correct the defective, must do equity with clean hands. Lawfully, equally, law prevails. First time vigilant intent fulfills obligation. I repeat. Correct the defective, must do equity with clean hands. Lawfully, equally, law prevails. First time vigilant intent fulfills obligation. So each of this word will actually relates to all the general principles. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.